Welcome, välkommen allesammen, god dag. My name is Linn Wilson. We'll get to that. I'm going to just give away the topic of the meeting today. Don't just visit Norway. We want you to live Norway. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy days to come see me. And my name is Linn Wilson. I'm a business development manager for Hurtigruten, and I cover all of North America East. I am a Love Boat child. So you see here my dad, who got his start in the shipping industry, I believe it was 1959. And, about 64 years later, I follow along. I hired on with Hurtigruten here back in 2016 with a cheeky Sarah Palin tagline, I could see the ships from my house. So I grew up in a small town called Landsvik, and I did in fact grow up watching the Hurtigruten ships pass my house every single day as a child. So I've known of Hurtigruten now since I was a child. More recently, I worked for Cruise Norway. So this is a bit of a homecoming for me. Cruise Norway is basically my extended family. So anytime they will have me, I love to come and just talk about our offerings and what we have cooking here at the Hurtigruten camp. While I move on here, I'm just going to turn off my video so that I can increase the bandwidth. You may know of Hurtigruten here that we have two brands. We have Hurtigruten, which covers all things Norway, translates to the fast route. And our sister brand is HX Hurtigruten Expedition. So just to keep things clear, today we will be discussing the Hurtigruten side of the business. And I think that goes with knowing your Norway. So first things first, you need to know a little bit about Norway here in order to understand how we even came to be as a company. So essentially two facts I want you to keep in mind. 2/3 of the country is mountainous. That gives us a beautiful country. And on the other side, you have a record-breaking number of fjords, 1,700 fjords along the coast of Norway. So if you're thinking, gosh, they must all have waterfront property, you are correct. We do. We have the best views. We have the best backdrops with the mountainscapes, but then we have to get from point A to point B, and therein lies the challenge. So with 1,700 fjords, you can imagine it's a little tricky to traverse the country, at least along the coastal communities. So back in the day, there was no sea link tying together southern Norway with northern Norway. Mail could take weeks to, if not months, depending on the time of year. So in 1891, the government said, there has to be a better way of doing this. Are there any seafarers that would be willing to navigate the coastline and connect these coastal communities, perhaps carrying mail, make this a little bit of a faster process? And also they wanted the seafarers to navigate at night. And that, my dear friends, is how we got our start. In 1893, Captain Richard Witt commandeered the DS Vesterålen, and we actually got our start by carrying mail between Trondheim and Hammerfest. So you can imagine here, when he set his sail here on July 2nd, 1893, got up here to Hammerfest, this was a route that had historically taken weeks, if not months. He achieved it in a matter of days, and that is when Hurtigruten was born. Hurtigruten quite literally translates to the fast route. So Hurti means fast, Ruten means route. So if you were to say that, well, it sounds like these Norwegians are quite literal people, you are correct. My maiden name is Uslang, and I grew up on the Uslang gravel road. So very literal people, but that is how Hurtigruten came to be. I always lead with this because we are a company steeped in history, steeped in legacy. Export was largely born with our ships. We were able to export the fish from the northern regions globally. A lot of the prosperity of the country of Norway can be tied back to our operations, and we've been known as a lifeline to the Norwegian coast ever since. But you'll see here on the map, the route has since expanded. So now we have a route from Bergen, Norway's second largest city, all the way up here to Kirkenes. And we have 34 ports of call, and we call upon each one of those over the course of 7 days. Important to note, if you're looking at this particular route, the intent was always that these would be working ships, you know, a way to provision these coastal communities. Our ships carry the equivalent of 10,000 trucks worth of cargo each year. So we are still 130 years later, an absolute lifeline to the Norwegian coast. But I want you to think back, 2/3 of the country is mountainous, 1,700 fjords. What does that equal? A tremendously beautiful coastline. So over the years, we organically grew to accommodate more and more leisure travelers, and we morphed into this unique multitasking cruise line of sorts, hands down the most authentic way to explore Norway, and it became this leisure experience. In 2011, we gained quite a bit of notoriety here in North America when we mounted 11 cameras on our MS Nord-Norge, and we live streamed the entire voyage from Bergen to Kirkenes. That is known, I guess, now to be the minute by minute or the world's most beautiful voyage. If you hear those terms, it's probably referring to that documentary that was shot all those years ago. If you are tuning in today, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you might have Norway on your radar. Lots of great ways to explore Norway. I hope that my intro with our rich legacy was inspirational to you, because it really is a great way to explore Norway. We are also industry leaders in sustainability. So under our sister brand, we built the world's first hybrid powered vessel. We'll have 3 hybrid ships along the coast of Norway by 2024. We're aiming to build our first zero emissions vessel by 2030. We offer an amazing culinary experience, and that we can give thanks to because we contract with local suppliers to provide 80% of our food. We were also the first major adventure travel company to ban all non-essential single-use plastics. We have water conservation efforts on board. Just suffice to say, sustainability factors into most, if not all, of our operational decisions. It is important for us to operate with as small of a footprint as possible and also provide a regenerative experience. So if this resonates with you and you care about sustainability, then we could be a good fit. When you go to Norway, you will encounter themes. One of those themes would be thriving cities. As you sail the coast of Norway, we are very prideful people. Lower right-hand side, that is Trondheim. You see the Nidaros Cathedral. Upper right-hand side here is Bergen. Upper left is Tromsø, and then lower left is Ålesund. You're going to have different cultural journeys, different architectural journeys, different dialect journeys, culinary journeys. We all have our own individual personalities, and you get a front row seat of all of these stories that we will tell along the way. We can't send you to Norway and not talk about our Viking heritage. So this would be the seafarers. They were explorers. You might most know them as warriors, but there's a fascinating Viking history. A lot of it derives from Norway, and that is a driving theme. Why tourists will come visit our beautiful country. We still have replicas of longships, lots of Viking experiences up and down the Norwegian coast. Another prevalent theme is Sami culture. Indigenous to northern Norway, it's such an important and celebrated aspect of modern day Norwegian life. Sami are descendants of nomadic peoples. They've inhabited northern Scandinavia for thousands of years. You might know them as to be fur trappers, sheep herders. They're arguably most known for semi-nomadic reindeer herding, however. But about half of the world's Sami population does reside in northern Norway, so you will encounter that Sami culture along the way. Of course, you'll have the fjords, 1,700 of them. You can't avoid the fjords. So if you're asking our wonderful Cruise Norway team, Will there be fjords? I'm just going to give you the blanket answer. Yes, there will be fjords. And even though we don't sail down each individual fjord, our ships will hug the coast. You're going to be sailing through archipelagos, fjords, and we do hug the coast for the majority of the way. So you have an incredibly scenic voyage ahead of you. In cod we trust. Again, you're going to learn lots about these fishing villages. This is a way of life for so many who live along the Norwegian coast. We have these hanging wrecks. They're called gjell. That's where we hang our salted fish to dry. Maybe you've tried beef jerky. Why not try a piece of dried fish? So we have lots of fish. We like to say we invented the fish and the oil, you know. So anytime you are in Norway, there will be fish storytelling. I'll give you a short story here. Unfortunately, our fleet was completely decimated during World War II. And when we had to rebuild and purchase new ships, we actually bought 4 ships with stockfish. So when we say in cod we trust, or we lean in on the fishing villages, this is a really crucial part of that Norwegian culture. Friluftsliv, we are obsessed with the great outdoors. We love some Mother Nature. Whenever, wherever possible, we are hiking, we are skiing. Have you seen us in the Winter Olympics? We dominate. We like to say we were born with skis on our feet. We love to go camping, canoeing, kayaking. So anytime we have the opportunity to showcase this outdoor living, our love for the great outdoors called friluftsliv, we offer that to all of our guests. We think it's a way of life. This is probably another reason why we are continually voted as the happiest people on this planet. So that's just a little bit about themes, a little bit about our intro. Your next question should be, Lynn, when is the best time to go? My dear friends, that is a trick question. Anytime is a good time to go to Norway. We have 4 distinct seasons that will yield 4 distinct experiences. So when you are talking to my amazing Cruise Norway colleagues and you are qualifying your next adventure, it's very important for you to tell them what you want to experience. Fun fact, Natal, she is listening in right now. She trained me back in my early days at Hurtigruten. So did Mari Pern. So 2 of the ladies over at Cruise Norway trained me in the beginning. And one of the first things that Anna told me was, because I would always ask the same question, when is the best time to go? And she said, it's completely dependent on what you want to experience. So make sure you know what you want when you are chatting to our Cruise Norway colleagues about your next Norway adventure. But let's dive into the seasons. So spring is a really special time frame. This is called vårfølelse, or spring awakening. If you were to ask, did Norwegians invent spring fever? We probably did. We have polar nights in Norway where the sun does not rise. It's very dark, it's very cold. When we see the sun return, when we see that first bald spot in the road where the snow is melting, we are within our rights to act a little crazy. So if you see these Norwegians frolicking about in April, fear not, we're just happy that the sun has returned and that, you know, we are on our way to the midnight sun. A very special magic about April voyages is that you have the opportunity to sail into a different season. So you're going to have the spring-like characteristics in the south, but as you go into the Arctic Circle, sail northbound, you are very much sailing into that winter landscape, the last remnants of the winter. If you go in May, you're going to have a little bit of a summer characteristic. So you're really going to be leaning in on the summer conditions in the south and in the spring-like conditions in the north. You will see lots of Norwegian flags here. I will just tell you, May 17th is not a bad time to be in Norway. This is our Constitution Day. All Norwegians come out in parades all up and down the country. We'll have celebrations on board. You'll find Norwegians wearing their bunad, which is that traditional Norwegian garb. You'll have traditional Norwegian cuisine, such as lapskaus, lefse, lumpe. May is an absolute magical time to go. You're so close to that 24-hour daylight at that time. Summer-like conditions in the south, spring-like conditions in the north, and it's still off-peak season. So it's not going to be fully booked until like it would be, for example, in summer. which summer is June through August. This is definitely the home of the midnight sun. Other highlights would be the powerful and majestic waterfalls. You have deviations into UNESCO listed fjords, such as the Geiranger fjord on some of our voyages. Loads of outdoor activities are launched in summertime. So friluftsliv really kicks into overdrive. We're going to have as many hikes as we can. The king crab fishing, as you see, four-wheeling, and lots of the hiking opportunities. So we do love the great outdoors. Once you are above the Arctic Circle, the sun will not set in June or July. So that is the phenomenon called the midnight sun. So if you are an insomniac tuning in, fear not, just go out on deck and just watch the landscape just lazily glide by. Summer is definitely the most popular time to travel with us. So you do expect that to be peak season. Then you have autumn, which is another magical season because, again, you're flirting with these two seasons. So if you go in September, you're going to share the last remnants of the summer characteristics in the south. You will sail into the fall foliage in the northern region. It's important to note that the sun does set after July. So as soon as the sun sets, we're really flirting with that Northern Lights season as well. So we don't really market Northern Lights until we're into October, but I'm here to tell you that you can absolutely still see those Northern Lights, usually from about mid-September onwards. All we need is darkness. This is also peak harvest time. So this means it's top foodie season at Hurtigruten. We'll have a delicious selection of the fresh, locally sourced cuisine. So the freshly caught seafood, free range meats, forage, mushrooms, and berries. Our menus do change based on the seasonality. And just keep in mind, we do source the vast majority of our ingredients locally. So you're not just going to see Norway, you will taste Norway. October, before I move on though, we'll have the autumn-like characteristics in the southern regions, and we will have the winter characteristics in the northern regions. So I had the pleasure of sailing with Daniel Pliski to Norway last month on our North Cape Express. And we definitely had both autumn, fall foliage in the southern regions, and we sailed right on up into winter in the northern regions. So once you get to winter, if you are an avid Northern Lights chaser, an aurora chaser, then you might want to consider a winter sailing. So just like the sun does not set in summer, it does not rise for certain months in the winter once you're above that Arctic Circle. So that does introduce the polar night, but fear not, even though the sun doesn't rise, the light that you're seeing in these images, that is the nautical twilight. So you get this beautiful blue hues. It's a photographer's dream. This also marks the onset of the winter activities, like you see here, the dog sledding, snowmobiling. We even have a cross-country skiing excursion. So this is a great time to chase the Northern Lights, experience Norway and its winter wonderland, the winter activities. You also have peak whale season in from late October through January. So if that's also on your bucket list, that's a great time to go as they come and they start feeding on the rich grounds in the northern region here. So I've talked a little bit about Northern Lights, and I think it's important to really hone in on that because we are such a great place for the Northern Lights. So if maybe you have Norway on your bucket list, you probably have Northern Lights on your bucket list. And I would just say, I would highly recommend you chase the lights by ship, because there's a few things you need and you have homework. So make sure that you do complete this homework assignment today. You need to look up the Aurora Oval, because that's the first, I guess, clue in this puzzle here. You need to have the right placement. So underneath the Aurora Oval is where the Northern Lights are most prevalently seen. And that's, of course, where they occur. They're the strongest. So you need to make sure that you have the right placement. You'll see here, Iceland is great, Greenland, Canada, parts of Alaska, all great places for Northern Lights, but you need more. You need as dark skies as you can get. So the polar night is a real winner here because it is darker for longer. You also need clear skies, and you need to get away from light pollution. So this is why I think you should consider a cruise for your next hunt. because we're already away from the light pollution that you would have in cities. And also, if it's a cloudy night, and let's say you're chasing in Iceland somewhere by land, you might be out of luck. There may not be anything you can do about that cloudy night. Our ships operate as floating observatories, so we can sail past cloud cover. And then the other thing too, you need to know that it's winter when these northern lights occur. And with winter comes freezing temperatures. So you can chase the lights by land and stay outside for hours on end on the off chance that the northern lights will occur, or don't go to, or you can go to bed, get your beauty sleep, don't be grumpy, and let us do the chasing. And if there are northern lights occurrences, we will make those announcements, and then you can just pop out on deck, chase the lights, go inside, warm up, pop back outside, chase the lights. So it's a really, really good way to chase the lights on ship. And I believe, I'm such a firm believer in recent footage. So when Daniel with Cruise Norway came with us on the North Cape Express in late October, these are all cell phone images. So these were all taken just about a month ago. And if you look here to the left, that was my image from my stateroom. And then the two to the right here were taken on one of our sister ships just a few short weeks ago. So I believe in current footage to showcase that this is the norm. It's not the exception. You also need to think about the solar maximum. So make sure you're also reading about the solar maximum. Once every 10 years or so, the northern lights kick into overdrive. You have higher than normal activity levels. That is supposed to occur 24-25. So if northern lights is on your bucket list, now is the time to plan with Cruise Norway. And if I don't have your attention yet, I'll just tell you, if there are no northern lights occurrences on the select voyages here, you get a free cruise. So we are within our northern lights promise period right now, anytime between October 1st and March 31st. Any of our departures along the coast of Norway, 11 days or longer. If there are no northern lights occurrences within sight of the ship during that voyage, you get a free 6 or 7 day classic voyage the following season. We know this is a bucket list destination. This is a bucket list theme. We want to maximize your opportunities to see the northern lights, which is why we have that promise. But we are very confident that the northern lights will occur. Just make sure you keep the announcements on in your stateroom and pop out there when the northern lights sightings are announced. So in the vein of northern lights, there's several different ways you can explore. So I'm just going to touch briefly on the Coastal Express because these other two packages build on that route. And then we're going to go into a little bit of a premium package that is more intuitive for a North American client, for example. So when you think of that classic route, I want you to think back to 1893. Think back to that first known sea link tying together the southern and the northern regions of Norway. That route is still in effect. We are still Hurtigruten along the coast of Norway. We have 6 ships operating this itinerary, so it doesn't matter. Any given week you search, between now and the end of March of 2025, we will have multiple departures. It is the most modular itinerary that we have. So you can do a full round trip, Bergen, Kirkenes, Bergen. That is a 12-day round trip. You're going to hit 34 ports of call sailing north and 33 of the same ports of call sailing south. Your immediate question to me should be, why should I do a round trip voyage with you if you're only going to call upon the same ports? The general rule of thumb is if you pass a port at night sailing north, generally speaking, you do hit that port during the daytime sailing south. So it really does become the route that will afford you the highest number of ports during daytime hours. You could also do a slightly shorter leg called the Classic Voyage of Discovery. Bergen, Kirkenes, Trondheim, that's 11 days. And if you just don't have that kind of vacation time, that is not a problem. You can do a 7-day northbound, Bergen to Kirkenes, or 6-day southbound, Kirkenes to Bergen. So this is the baseline. This is the very modular itinerary, 6 ships operating this itinerary year round. But I did want to bring it up to lay the foundation because we have other themed voyages that build on this route. So let's say that you are just all in on Northern Lights and you want to learn, are they diffuse patches? Is it an arc? Is it a band? Is it a corona? What kind of Northern Lights? What makes the color of Northern Lights? How does it interact with the gases or what have you? That's, if these are questions that you have, you should be thinking about the astronomy voyage. So this builds on to the 12-day Hurtigruten route. The route is the same, but we bring on renowned astronomers on select departures, and they have a dedicated lecture program only on astronomy. And there's also an exclusive excursion to the planetarium here in Tromsø. So you will become an aurora chaser, and you're going to learn everything there is to know about Northern Lights, maybe even Norse mythology, you know, the belief of how Northern Lights came to be. So it'll be an epic storytelling journey. Fantastic for anyone who's all in on chasing those lights. We also have a Scandinavia Forward Best of Land and Sea package to offer. So one such package would be the 17-day Follow the Lights northbound. So this actually starts in Oslo, has that famed Norway in a nutshell, incredibly scenic way to get to Bergen from Oslo here. Then you would participate in the classic northbound voyage from Bergen to Kirkenes. And then you start your land hunt. And this is where Santa's village comes into play. This is where we have igloo hotels that you can chase the Northern Lights in. You have Sami culture in Finland. So this really does maximize your experience and gives you the best of both land and sea. So when you're talking to Cruise Norway, you can book this entire package through them and it would end in Helsinki. That's 17 days. If that's a smidge too long, you can also start in Helsinki, take the rail up here to Rovaniemi, which by the way is a fantastic place to see the Northern Lights. You should download the apps because every time we looked, it was best places to see them was like Tromsø region as well as Rovaniemi. So this is a very, very good place to chase the Northern Lights. And you really get huskies, you get reindeer, you get Sami culture, you get the igloo hotel. So this is something to really consider if you want more of an inclusive package in addition to just the standalone cruise. And then you have the premium North Cape Express. And this one is a commercial route. So all of the other routes that have those 34 ports of call, you do also always need to keep in mind that we are contracted to be in ports at very specific times. So the port stays are a little bit shorter on that classic route or the astronomy voyage or the Follow the Lights tours because we have to be in port at very specific times. So you'll average maybe one port per day with a few hours, but building on our 130 years of legacy and experience, we have launched the North Cape Express. And this is not a working ship in that traditional sense where we're contracted with the government, because we're not. This is a commercial experience. So that means we're going to have about 6 or 7 hours in port on average. So some ports will be 4 hours. Other ports can be all the way up to 13 hours. So this is a premium, more inclusive itinerary. And this also marks the first time that we're sailing in and out of our capital, Oslo. And there's loads of different ways you can explore this route. You can do a 14 or 15-day voyage. So it would look like Bergen, Honningsvåg, then come all the way around, wrap around to Oslo. The second one would be Oslo, Honningsvåg, and then it would come down to Bergen. You can also do shorter 9 or 10-day voyages. The onboard experience is more inclusive, and there's a much heavier focus on the culinary experience with this North Cape Express. So if you are tuning in and you are a foodie, this is a really good fit. So I've already talked about the Northern Lights. I've already talked about the Northern Lights Promise. That is, the North Cape Express is a predominantly winter, it's an autumn, winter, and spring voyage. So the vast majority of the months in which she will operate is under the guise and the blanket of the Northern Lights. But we're also going to have food tastings, cooking demonstrations. You will know exactly where all these ingredients are sourced. You're going to learn about our suppliers. You will get a story with every meal and every drink that you have. So that's just a few ways to chase the northern lights. And I mentioned that a lot of those build on that classic route founded by Captain Richard With all those years ago. So if you look at the images here, we have 6 ships that we sell here in the North American market. They're all pretty small. So if you have seen those larger white ships, you could probably fit our entire fleet into one of those ships. So we are known for that smaller, more intimate experience. And the reason we can have these multiple departures every single week is because we have 6 ships operating that same route year round. For that premium experience, we have 1 ship operating, and that is the MS Trollfjord. All of our classic ships, by the way, have been refurbished in 2016 or later. And then the Trollfjord was refurbished here in spring of 2023. So that would be maybe 1 to 2 departures a month, or 2 departures a month on the North Cape Express, generally speaking. But northern lights are not the only light that we hunt. We also hunt the midnight sun. And once again, we have different ways for you to explore. So the first one builds on that classic route, which we discussed already year round. The only thing I'll say is that between June and August, we do deviate into the Geiranger fjord on the northbound leg on day 2. That is a really impressive fjord. It's UNESCO World Heritage listed. And we also try to deviate into a narrow fjord called the Trollfjord, which is only about 100 meters wide in certain areas. And we usually need daylight to be able to deviate into that fjord. Building upon that classic route, again, you'll see that the map is the same. It's another Scandinavia forward way to explore the best of land and sea. So here you would start with an overnight in Stockholm, Sweden. You would take the ferry over to Helsinki, the rail up to Rovaniemi, make your way up here to Kirkenes, and you would hop on that southbound Voyage leg. So that's a 15-day package tour again, which lends to both land and sea. That's less to have to coordinate. And then the counterpart to the North Cape Express is the Svalbard Express. So this is predominantly a summer itinerary. Also driving or deriving our experiences, or we are paying homage to our past rather. We, between 1968 and 1982, we actually had a government contracted route that ties together Norway and this wonky high Arctic archipelago that brings you within 800 miles of the geographic North Pole. So this is a route that we have revamped to basically just pay homage to our rich history. Once again, this is not going to be a working ship in the traditional sense that you know it. We will have longer port stays. Once again, we're going to have a larger coastal experience team. We will still have that wonderful culinary focus with the seasonal ingredients, and we will give you a taste of the high Arctic without you having to undertake that high Arctic expedition price. So immediately when you see Svalbard, that is generally speaking an expedition destination. And by that, I mean not much in the way of human infrastructure. So you might be used to an expedition that might be a circumnavigation where you're zodiacking ashore. So just to set the expectation, there are, I believe, 2 piers in the Svalbard archipelago, and we will call upon both of them. Svalbard is northernmost everything, and they live lives of extremes. So the sun doesn't set between late April and August, and the sun does not rise for months on end. Northernmost everything, post office, settlement with north of 1,000 inhabitants. Very interesting place to visit. So once again, you have those 6 ships operating the classic route as well as the Follow the Midnight Sun. And then you have the Svalbard Express for the premium route here. So if we're talking about that classic Bergen-Kirkenes route, a few of the highlights that you will encounter would be the Jørenfjord. That's another fjord we deviate into in September and October. There's the Trollfjord I was telling you about. The big white ships, they're not going down here. They will not fit. So we're one of the few that actually fit here. You will feel like your captain is a magician as he's navigating the ships around. It feels like you could just reach out and touch these vertical mountains that are just shooting out of the fjord. So this is a wildly impressive fjord. We do have to have the right conditions to deviate into here. We have to make sure there's no mudslide dangers, and we generally speaking will need a little bit of daylight. So I would say May through maybe mid-October, so it would be a safe bet that we do at least try to deviate into the Trollfjord. Lofoten Archipelago. If you are looking at Norway, I guarantee you have looked at images of the Lofoten Archipelago. This is one of the most scenic areas of all of Norway, all of our voyages included. Vesterålen is equally as impressive, albeit not as well known. It's an archipelago just north of the Lofoten archipelago, and it's also home to our birthplace, Stokmarknes. And we're so intertwined with the history of Norway that we even have a Hurtigruten museum with one of our decommissioned vessels from 1956, the MS Finnmarken. So our history is Norwegian history is our history. So we are absolutely the quintessential Norwegian experience. Life on board the classic route. All of our ships have 180-degree panorama lounges. We all have lecture halls. Most of our ships have the hot tubs. Lethal gift shop. So when you book with Cruise Norway, they are a preferred partner of ours. They're one of our longest running partners. So you always get shipboard credit benefits. So make sure you're asking about your shipboard credit when you book and leave some space in your luggage. I was team carry-on going to Norway and I did not make it team carry-on coming back because I went a little crazy here in the gift shop. This is a culinary experience. So of course we have the fitness centers to offset that caloric intake. So either don't pack any tight clothing or bring your gym wear, whatever is good for you, proceed. And then of course we have the observation deck space where you can take in the midnight sun, the wildlife, the breaching whales, the northern lights. It's very important for us that you feel at home on board. So whenever you're looking at the staterooms, they might look a little bit compact. Our ships are designed for your comfort. If you spend an exorbitant amount of time in your stateroom, I dare say we have sold you the wrong experience. There's no dress code on board with us. Your stateroom is your bedroom. The panorama lounge is your living room. The restaurants are your kitchens. You will easily see people knitting, crocheting, playing cards, reading a book in the common areas because it's meant to be your base camp at sea. If you want the casinos, the late night entertainment, the discotheques, please do not book Hurtigruten. I fear we would not get along or you probably wouldn't like us. But if you are a seeker of knowledge and you are into edutainment, entertainment in the form of education, we could be a good fit. We have robust lecture programs on all of our ships. If you pass areas of historical and cultural significance, we invite you out on deck to have a point of interest. When you sail the classic route, I think some of the best magic lies within the ability to travel like a local. I just sailed port to port last month as well. I did Trondheim to Bergen on the MS Nordlys, and I saw loads of these type of displays where families were reunited. You might even see like a soccer team just come on board because they might be utilizing our services from one port to the next because we're still the fastest route. You will have Norway's coastal kitchen. So we celebrate the coast of Norway. They celebrate us. With any of our Hurtigruten Norway offerings, you're not just going to see Norway, you will taste Norway. It's very important for us to contract directly with these local suppliers, A, to keep this a circular economy, a regenerative experience, B, to provide you with an amazing culinary experience on board with some of the freshest cuisine and ingredients available. So all of your meals on the classic route will be in our main dining Torget. So that is included full board for all guests on the classic voyages. You do have to upgrade if you're doing port to port, but breakfast and lunch is generally speaking buffet, and dinner is a la carte seated meal. We always have a meat-based, a fish-based, and a plant-based option. So make sure you are communicating your dietary preferences to your Cruise Norway travel advisor. Optional would be brygga, that translates to wharf, and this is where you can find comfort foods, traditional Nordic dishes, and also comfort foods such as pizzas and gastro burgers. If you want a little bit of fine dining, we do have Houston. That is our a la carte fine dining option. That would be an additional charge, and you can absolutely upgrade there. And we have been keeping dentists in business since 1893. Norwegians are obsessed with sweets. We love it so much. We have a saying called lørdagsgodt, which means Saturday candy. So we do have an onboard bakery on our ships with the waffles, the pastries. You can get smoothies, coffees, and a wide variety of ice creams. You won't just taste Norway in your dishes, but you will also taste Norway in your drinks. So we have breweries that brew IPAs only for Hurtigruten. We have distilleries that make premium Arctic gin and akvavit only for Hurtigruten. So once again, our choices to contract with local suppliers extends to food and beverages. So as you're watching this beautiful landscape just lazily glide by, enjoy that Nordic signature cocktail along the way. So I did start here by saying that we have working ships, but that's not to say we're bringing you around in rust buckets. These are well-appointed ships, all refurbished in 2016 or later. We have suites with floor-to-ceiling bay windows, two-room suites, as well as mini suites. We have a wide variety of other ocean view staterooms as well as interior staterooms. So if you want this route, but you also expect to spend a little time in your stateroom, I would recommend to just go ahead and look at a suite. But in general, this is your bedroom. If you use the ship the way it's intended, you will be out and about, and it's perfectly okay to have a budget, go with an interior stateroom. My preference is still ocean view, to lead in, but you have the option. So just talk it over with Cruise Norway, find what works for you, and proceed accordingly. So with the classic route, you'll get your cabin grade, your cabin number, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You have your choice of preferred dining time for dinner, complimentary coffee and tea throughout, Wi-Fi is included, the lecture program, 3-person coastal experience team. The price you are quoted by Cruise Norway includes port charges, taxes, and fees. So that is not a separate item. And it's not really the Norwegian way to leave gratuities. So gratuities are not expected with us. So I do want to kind of hone in a little bit more on the North Cape Express here, because again, there's different ways to explore, and this is a really solid route. So Daniel and I sailed Bergen, Honningsvåg, Tromsø last month. So that was one of the half North Cape Express voyages. You can also do Tromsø, Honningsvåg, Bergen. You can do Oslo, Tromsø, Tromsø, Oslo, or you can do the full 14 or 15-day round trip. So I say 14 to 15 days because the length depends on season. So if you're going anytime between now and April 2024, the full package is actually 15 days. So one iteration will start in Oslo, has 2 overnights built into the package already. The other iteration is Bergen, has 2 hotel nights built in. If you do the half voyages, usually you'll have a pre-night and a post-night built into your package. It is important though, anything last minute, if you are booking anything departing in the next or 90 days or less, the hotel allotments are released. So the voyage will be shorter and you will sail cruise only. So just kind of keep that in mind as you are chatting to Cruise Norway. Most of the Cruise Norway staff are former Hurtigruten employees, so you will not find a higher level of expertise than within this team. Some highlights of the North Cape Express is our beautiful capital, Oslo. So this is the first time we've sailed in and out of Oslo since our inception in 1893. And we're going to take you all the way up to the North Cape, which is known to be one of the northernmost points of mainland Norway, probably the most impressive northernmost point, I would say, due to this cliff that sits about 1,000 feet above sea level. You'll visit the 2nd longest fjord in Norway, the 5th longest in the world, the Hardangerfjord. Fjords are a big draw for guests traveling to Norway. You want to go, if you're going on the North Cape Express, I already know you are an aurora chaser. You're hunting the lights, except for April. April's not really the best for lights, but all the other months are. Alta is squarely right smack beneath that aurora oval. It is a fantastic place to chase the northern lights. You're going to learn about village life and the history of Hurtigruten. Lødingen is just a small village with 2,000 inhabitants, and we used to call upon this port about 50 some odd years ago, but the fish that we were exporting was not keeping due to the route, so we actually had to change the route to go take a different route and cut the time a little bit so that the seafood would stay preserved for longer. I learned that when I was on board last month, so I thought that was interesting. But it's fun because they welcome us. We got back and they shot off fireworks. All the cafes had signs out front that said Hurtigruten's in town, so they love having us back, and it's beautiful for us to have this homecoming as well. Very impressive is the gateway to the Arctic, or the Paris of the North. This is the largest city in northern Norway, just about 80,000 inhabitants. So much to do here. It's known for northern lights. It's known for dog sledding. It's known for whale watching. It got its name Paris of the North, I think, is because this is such a strategic place for seafarers as well. This has always been a provisioning port for seafarers returning from the high Arctic. And we think that it got the nickname Paris of the North because it brought that joy of the return of society. It brought about that same joy that you have when you visit Paris. So that's the thought process. Either way, the nickname has stuck around. Ålesund, you'll go on an architectural journey. Sometimes you'll have the row houses like in Bergen. When you go to Molde, you're going to find a sleeker architectural design, and that's because they were so heavily bombed during World War II, they opted to not rebuild with the wooden structures. Ålesund had a bad fire in the early 1900s, so they rebuilt in Art Nouveau style. So if you're tuning in and you are an architectural enthusiast, this could become an architectural journey as well. Of course, Lofoten Archipelago year-round, all of our voyages touch on Lofoten there. And then let's set our sights on the summer voyage, the Svalbard Express, and spotlight on Svalbard. So I've already given away some of the secrets here. But about 2,500 population, I do believe it might be the only place on Earth that does not require a visa from anyone. You're not allowed to give birth here. You may not die here. I don't know how that's enforced, but it's a rule. And if you have a cat, my dear friends, you must say goodbye to Garfield. Cats are indeed illegal in Svalbard due to the many protected bird species up here. There are rumored to also be more polar bears than people in the Svalbard archipelago. It is not common to see them up close, nor should you ever want to. They are quite fast, and we are not the apex predator, so you don't want to get close to a polar bear. They are definitely the king of the north, but there are rumored to be around 3,000 bears in the Svalbard archipelago region. So once again, with the Svalbard Express, you have modular opportunities here. So anytime you're thinking Hurtigruten, we try to make this modular so we have something for everyone. The full round trip is 16 days. It's going to take you all the way up to 79 degrees north, New Ålesund. That's home to the northernmost post office in the world, in case you want to drop yourself a quick letter from there. Then you're going to come back down by means of Tromsø, sail down to Bergen. Longer port stays again, more inclusive environment. If you do have, if you don't have that kind of vacation time, that's fine. You can also do half voyages where you go to Honningsvåg, and northbound would have you debarking in Longyearbyen, but you would have 3 days here to explore this wonderfully wonky town in the high Arctic. And you'll have a couple of included activities, such as a hybrid electric catamaran ride down a fjord called the Billefjord. And that's going to take you to a glacier called the Nordenskjoldbreen. So the half northbound voyage would be great for someone who is mostly interested in Norway, but with a slight interest in the high Arctic and what it has to offer. If the high Arctic holds more appeal and you can't do that 16-day round trip, then you might want to consider flying into Longyearbyen, spending 3 days there with the package, then hop on the Trollfjord, sail up to New Ålesund, and then back down by means of Bergen. So if you're looking at either the half voyages, you're looking at which one's the best, make sure that you are talking to Cruise Norway and that they can go over each port. So it's probably going to come down to which ports you want to explore the most. This is also a really great itinerary for avid birders. There's lots of birds, puffins, skuas, gannets, sea eagles. Arctic terns migrate all the way from Antarctica to Svalbard. So if you are a budding birder or photography enthusiast, all of these things would be a clear-cut fit for the Svalbard Express. We'll take you to Åndalsnes, which is the mountaineering capital of Norway. So even on the second day of sailing, you're coming into this wonderful port surrounded by these beautiful mountains. You've already traversed 2 fjords just to get in here. You're going to go to this wonky archipelago in the middle of nowhere called Tirana, 33 nautical miles offshore, one of the smallest municipalities in all of Norway, fewer than 500 inhabitants. So if your first question is, I wonder how dating works there, that would have been my first question as well. But they have archaeological finds dating back 9,000 years. So this is not your typical tourist trap. And I think that's what makes things so magical with Hurtigruten. We do take you where other people don't go. And that is by design, because we're not looking to give you this cookie cutter touristy experience. We want you to travel like a local. We want you to live Norway. Don't just see Norway. Lofoten Archipelago, always on the roster. We will have extended port stays in Svalbard, so that will open the door for some independent exploration, but keep that on your radar. That wonky high Arctic town called Longyearbyen, lots of our colleagues live up there. They're some of the happiest people on the planet. Even though they're in the polar night now, they're just making the most out of it up there. And yeah, a lot of our expedition counterparts, they actually live up in Longyearbyen when they're not on charter. The Isfjord is on the roster here. And then again, Ny-Ålesund is a small town, researchers with, I don't know, the tens to the hundreds of people living there. Senja, it's noted as mini Norway. It has lots of landscapes that are usually you could see them in other places along the coast of Norway, but there's a concentration of them in Senja. It was ranked by CNN to be one of the top 10 islands to visit. You'll have the famed Jørenfjord as well. That'll take you to a small town of a whopping 40 inhabitants called Urke. So again, you do have the fjords, you have the mountains, you have the archipelagos, you have the high Arctic, you have the architecture, the birders. So this is really an itinerary that delivers on a wide variety of wish lists, if you will. So when you get on board, we did mention that this is a more inclusive experience. So you have Flora, that is our main dining for all guests. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner is included here. You also have Brasserie Arran. So this is a second restaurant that's included for all guests, generally speaking, for lunch and dinner. And with lunch and dinner and other opening hours, there are select beers, wines, spirits, cocktails included with your fare as well. If you book a suite, you get to participate in, you get to dine in the culinary star of the ship, Rust. When we went last month, this was the restaurant that hands down got the most attention. Every meal has a story. If we're sailing past Lofoten, maybe we'll serve up Lofoten seaweed. So every single meal you have is paired beautifully with the wine, and you learn exactly where the ingredients are sourced from. How did we prepare the meals? So it's this beautiful storytelling journey. And then I also love the 1893 bar. So when we went, we were chasing the Northern Lights, and there's two distinct personalities on board. During the daytime, we would see people knitting, playing cards, crocheting, reading books. It was a quiet, tranquil experience. We did a fair bit of whale watching from in here. It's a 2-story panorama lounge. And then at night, it exploded with this electric ambiance on board as we were chasing the Northern Lights. So what happened was we would get these Northern Lights announcements. We would pop out on site. We would just take all these pictures, geek out about it. Then we would pop inside. Some of us would have cocktails. Others would have hot chocolates. We would warm up again, talk about what we had just experienced, and then we would pop out on deck again. So this is located on decks 8 and 9, which is right next to the outdoor observation deck space. The mixologists, the bartenders on board, they are so cool. Many of them have won international competitions in mixology. They're just so well versed on their craft. You will have these signature Nordic cocktails, and the way they prepare them is just absolutely magical. So if this is something you partake in, I definitely recommend upgrading for the drinks package so that you can see their skill set firsthand. Just like with the classic route, we're going to have hikes, we're going to have points of interest out on deck, and then we're also going to have the lecture program on board. And then life on board the Trollfjord, again, fully refurbished in 2023, takes about 500 passengers. 2-story panorama lounge as opposed to the 1-story on the other ships. We'll have the lecture hall with the movie theater style seating. We'll have saunas with floor to ceiling windows. The fitness center to offset the caloric intake, but the outdoor observation deck space is key. In summer, we're just taking in the sun, and in winter, we are chasing those lights. Well-appointed suites, we have some with balconies, others have the bay windows there. They're quite spacious. Your Cruise Norway advisors do have a few walkthrough videos of differing stateroom types from the Trollfjord as well as the common area, so make sure you are requesting those from them. We also have a wide variety of other stateroom options. One of the pictures that I showed you earlier was taken from my Arctic Superior stateroom. It turned into this artistic journey. And then let's talk about what's included. So it is more inclusive. You do need to check with Cruise Norway on the itinerary for what hotels are included, because it does depend. Wi-Fi is Starlink, that's included. Full board in Flora, lunch and dinner in Arran for all guests, unlimited selected drinks. You have this awesome afternoon snack in the Panorama Bar and Lounge. We have the multilingual, larger coastal experience team with the lecture program, photography tips and tricks. We'll have movie nights as well. If you book a suite, you do have access to Rust. And you do also, if you're booking the round trip, you do get a clothing package and a couple of seasonal excursions. So make sure you are asking about both the non-suite and the suite stateroom options for the North Cape Express or Svalbard Express. Now I'd love to introduce the amazing Cruise Norway Americas team here. So you have Daniel Pliski here to the left. He was with me. So firsthand experience, he was with us. So just make sure you're always asking the questions. He used to work at Hurtigruten, and Sinclair is an old colleague of mine from Hurtigruten as well. Ash was my main, when I worked at Cruise Norway, he worked at Hurtigruten. He was my main counterpart. You have Daniel Wolf, who is an absolute powerhouse in expedition as well. Then you have a robust team covering the rest of the world. You have Matthew Gray, former Hurtigruten. You have Sarah Ong, a rising star in the Norwegian expedition space. Ivo Buchmann handles all of our German clientele. And then you have Mari Pern. She was the first trainer I had back in 2016. And I actually had my first Norway voyage with Hurtigruten with Mari. So we all just go back so many years, and we are just this extended family. Anne Tal, oh my goodness. So Mari trained me on all things Norway. Anne trained me on all things expedition. And Carl Espen Fjerdminus, he was my boss in my Cruise Norway days. And he trained me on all things on the travel agency retail side. So these members are my extended family. We go back so many years, and they are so talented. You will not find a more concentrated knowledge base of Hurtigruten offerings than you will find at Cruise Norway. Amazing team. So I hope that you are requesting quotations with them as we speak, and I hope I have inspired. Okay, my dear friends. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. This session was indeed recorded for your quality assurance. So we will be sending that recording over to our Cruise Norway family momentarily. And I really appreciate you guys all tuning in. I hope you found this to be helpful. And again, please reach out to your Cruise Norway advisor because you are in great hands with them.